Why do so many strong, successful women keep finding themselves in the same painful patterns? In this episode, Mia joins me for a conversation about survival mode, emotional healing, self-trust, and the hidden ways trauma can shape our relationships. We explore what it takes to break free from old patterns, regulate the nervous system, and reclaim your power not through force, but through awareness. Because real soft power begins when you stop surviving and start living. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Soft Power Project. Today's guest is Mia Vivone, a professional trauma recovery coach and a creator of cognitive emotional recalibration method. And with more than 22 years of experience, Mia helped women move from beyond survival mode by rebuilding the connection between the mind, emotions, and body. And today we'll learn why this work became so deeply important to her and hear the incredible story that shaped the mission behind everything she does. Hi, Mia. Thank you for being here.
Hi, Sherry. It's such a pleasure to be with you. Thank you so much. I just wanted to say that I have renamed that framework. It's now called the Untriggered Woman Trauma Transformation System. It's the same, but just a different name. Yes. But I'm so glad to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm so excited because I feel like I have so much I wanted to ask. And while I'm doing research on your background, your story, and also just the method that you're coaching and your client specifically, I'm just so curious. So I wanted to kind of start from one question is, so you're talking about moving from survival mode. And I feel like ever since I started to start this project and understand what survival mode means. And I realized that it is so much more complex than I ever imagined. Because I think survival mode, like that word mode, to me, somehow I interpret it as there's a switch. I can just switch on and off. I could just like go from survival mode to another mode. But apparently that's definitely not the case. So I just wanted to hear your thoughts and your insights a little bit on what that means and why that is so important for you as a coach.
Thank you, Sherry. Really good question, especially since today there's so much information out there about nervous system regulation. The last 10 years have given us all of this information about how important this is. And it is important. But what I see now more than anything is there's so many people out there that are using these nervous system regulation techniques to continue to suppress or escape their feeling states. And it's actually making them worse, even neurotic. If I am uncomfortable, I have to splash my face with water or, do some jogging. And this was not, I believe, the author's intention, the scientists who gave us this information. In all of the literature and also in all my information, there's a tagline that says felt safety is the beginning. Nervous system regulation is designed to be the beginning, to have the mind be present for the deeper work. The mind work is actually what keeps us in that sense of safety over and over and over. That going through the body helps us get there faster instead of a top-down approach, which is trying to cognitively think our way out of it or continue to tell the narrative, which can be re-traumatizing. But you're right, there is no switch. This has to be a progressive, deliberate, consistent approach of retraining a brain and a body that have been responding to traumatic imprints.
Yeah, thank you so much for explaining that. Can you tell us a little bit about why this work is so incredibly important for you?
I came across this work as it was just not intended. I was a fitness instructor, a sports nutritionist. I got really in touch with my mind-body connection through fitness. It saved my life. I was 5'1" and 200 pounds and just eating horribly, and all kinds of messages that came to me about food filling a void, particularly the
Right.
message from my mother wound that if I just eat, messages about poverty, there's not enough, there's other people starving, so I need to eat it all. Yeah, I never know when I'm going to eat again. And what ended up happening is I started to experience some problems in my upper body. I was at the gym lifting weights and I was dropping the weights. And so I thought it was like carpal tunnel syndrome or something like that. But really, what it was I had a broken neck from an old domestic violence injury. And because I didn't have insurance and I was in abject poverty, I didn't get care. And within 3 months, they were operating on my neck. The operation was about 8.5 hours long. My neck is fused, and it took me out of my sport. I was a professional bodybuilder, a bikini model. It took me out of my job because a lot of the exercises that were my favorite, I could not demonstrate. And so I
Right.
took additional classes, and out of desperation too, I started investigating traumatic imprints in healing and cognition and neuroscience. So a lot of the formulation of my signature approach is by sheer desperation, and being able to pass that on to other women is an incredible purpose for my life. It makes everything that I've experienced, I mean, everything, just so worthwhile now that I can teach other people how to live with what's happened, how to integrate that instead of wishing it away, avoiding it, or hating a part of ourselves that experienced that. So
Mm.
that's really where it came from, because I'm a survivor too. And who better to help us through things that can see from the inside out? And this is just my opinion, especially when it comes to the cognition of a trauma survivor. It's one thing to have the book application, the smarts of it, but if you can't see or experience how I think, you can't help me through that part. That is the biggest part to me that's missing in the trauma informed world right now is the people who aren't able to help me see and think clearly so I can change the behavioral responses. That's why I named my program The Untriggered Woman.
Ah, untriggered women. Can you tell me a little bit about that name? Because I understand you changed that name. And what caused you to change the name?
Well, the first thing, honestly, Sherry, just between us as friends here, I didn't name it. I had hired a pretty expensive business coach at the time of that formulation that helped me understand and put into a logical sequence of how I was helping other people. I never liked the name. It took me a minute to figure out exactly what I wanted to call it. So I did some market research, and I bounced it off people who know me and are close to me. And this one seemed to resonate. And even though it seems preposterous to think that we can become untriggered by a lot of trauma, those things are in me. It's how I respond differently to them that matters. And so an example, I had a lot of anger from sexual assault as a child, rape experience several times, domestic violence, I don't know how many times. And so I had all of this anger to the point where I committed a violent act as a child, and I was incarcerated for 4.5 years in an adult state institution. I had a lot of fighting on the streets with peers, in schools. I was unruly in employment with superiors. And a lot of this was a result of the trauma that I had experienced. And I have changed that to this day where I don't behave that way anymore.
Mm,
And it's a
mm.
result of the framework that I apply.
Wow. Yeah, I'd love to know more about what that means. And like you said, I think, yeah, I think for any women or any person who had been through trauma, it's almost like we don't know when the next trigger will come from, or will show up, and sometimes everything seems perfectly fine and someone said something that triggers us, and being in relationship triggers us. But I wanted to really highlight this one thing that you do specifically, I think, with a lot of your clients, is that for the high functioning women, because it's so interesting to me that I think just from doing research that a lot of women who went through trauma became the high functioning women. And I've seen so many of my brilliant, incredible friends around me. They're the high functioning women. And why is that? Like, why is there such a correlation from being through trauma and becoming high functioning?
Really good question, Sherry. Thank you so much. The short answer is survival becomes survival. I have to learn how to adapt. And as a woman who has experienced trauma, chances are I've learned to put everybody else first and deny myself, deny my reality, my experiences, my emotions, my needs. So now I'm high functioning. And I know this is a global thing, right? It's Taiwan, right? And I'm in California, USA, and there's still a glorification of busy. Just do more, just apply yourself more, and now with technological advances, there's no excuse for not making the mark because you have Slack and you have Claude and why aren't you doing more? I don't care if you work at home and you have two small children. And so what ends up happening is high functioning and professional women, we have an override switch. And the reason that this exists is the roots are in our childhood. Somewhere in there, we did not get our needs met. So why? Why would we prioritize ourselves when the most significant relationship that we have with our mothers didn't even prioritize us? But in short, it's because we've denied ourselves and it pushes us into a freeze state. And the freeze state is all about energy conservation. So the brain has this beautiful thing that says, I'm going to numb. I'm not going to feel it. I'm just going to push through. And what ends up happening after being in that state for so long, now I have symptoms in my body. I have inflammation. I have backache. I have neck ache. I have a lot of anger. I have a lot of depression going on and anxiety, but I keep it under the surface because I have to wear this mask that says to everybody else that I'm fine, because heaven forbid you see the crack in my mask and you know something's not okay. And if you point out to me, hey, Mia, why are you not okay? I instantly go into shame because I have the awareness that I can't do it all. And I need to believe to survive that I can do it all.
Because I think what you just mentioned, how this is such a global phenomenon. I mean, yeah, I'm in Taiwan. I talk to a lot of women from all over the world. And I think what you said about childhood, I think that affect every single one of us, and especially for women. And I just feel like women everywhere is really experiencing this and, really understanding how to take off that mask. And I think in a way, we all kind of had to go through some burnout or some sort of, quote unquote failure. I don't really see them as failure now, but we had to kind of experience that in order to kind of wake up and be like, oh my gosh, we had been in survival mode and I've been in fight or flight mode for such a long time. And it's exhausting. And I think a lot of cultural thing, as well kind of plays a really, really big part. So somehow women ended up just doing everything. Like you got to be the good daughter, the good aunt, the good granddaughter, good everything. And then also in your job, you got to kick ass. You have to be earning all the money, be financially independent. So it feels so incredibly exhausting. And yeah, like you said, everyone just kind of like have this mask on. And whenever we kind of show a little bit of our weakness, like you said, it's immediate shame, right? If someone goes, oh, you don't look too well, that's the first feeling that I get. It's like, oh my God, am I not hiding,
Yeah.
well enough? right?
Yeah. Yes. Yes. And the fact that you used hiding, that tells me a lot about you,
Hmm.
Sherry. That tells me a lot about you, that this fear of being seen as inadequate or not enough. And the world already knows, it's no secret, the Asian population has high expectations. It's woven into the culture. And so here we are getting this from our parents, that we need to do it like this and we need to be like this. And if I don't meet that, I'm bringing, not only am I a personal failure, I'm bringing shame to the family. And so
Hmm.
there's an added expectation there. This conditioning that happens in culture, and especially for women, an example would be, I talked to a friend some time ago. He had lost his mother. This gentleman is in his 60s, and this is what he said. She did it all. She cooked, she cleaned, she worked, she took care of the kids, the grandkids, and she never complained. How amazing she was. And, I didn't say this out loud, but who I am in my head, I thought, this woman worked herself to death. And Sherry, that's happening. This type of stress that comes from being trauma survivors, but pushing through anyway, past our limitations, causing inflammation in the body. It affects adrenal function. It affects, we have things like fibromyalgia coming up. It's so connected to disease in the body and the exhaustion that comes with it, that women they can continue to operate like this and ignore those warning signs, especially the physical manifestations, and have a heart attack. Ischemic heart attack, number one killer of women here in the US. And ischemic meaning unexplained, just suddenly. She wasn't a smoker. There's probably nothing on the radar, but she had a heart attack from this, already having so much stress as a child and then having it unresolved or unintegrated. And now as an adult, I'm functioning at this ridiculous pace because I don't want to let you down and I don't want to feel inadequate. So I'm going to take it all on. I'm going to sign up for more. And then when you say, well, Mia, self-care is important, I'm going to brush it off because who has time? I have so much to do. And this is where we have the problem. And with all the misinformation about trauma and nervous system regulation, we don't need to spend every waking moment trying to run out of our current state. Nervous system regulation is dipping from the social engagement or ventral vagus nerve into, I get upset once in a while or irritated, and then back into social engagement. That's the wave. Flatline. It's not calm all the time, but everything on social media will lead you to believe differently. Some really good sources on Instagram, I will say that, especially the neuroscience sources. But the thing we want to avoid is we want to avoid the spike into anger, frustration, panic, anxiety, freeze, shut down, and energy conservation and depression, and then back into anger. So what it looks like is I'm angry all the time and now I'm just going to shut it off. And I'm angry all the time and now I'm just going to shut it off. That wave right there is nervous system dysregulation. And it is so common in professional entrepreneurial women because I am so busy doing everything for everybody except myself that I'm ignoring my internal architecture. I'm ignoring it completely. Yeah, really, really bad. Ends up really badly.
Yeah, I think like you said, that freeze, because it's like I don't want to feel what I need to feel, and immediately I just wanted to shut down. I don't want it to feel, and I feel like a lot of women, especially women in these, in the survival mode, we almost like wearing I can do it all as like a badge of honor somehow, right?
True.
Like I've seen a lot of women talking about it as if that's an accomplishment and they're
Mm.
really proud of it. They're so proud of it. And I think me on now on the other side where I'm trying to get to the other side of it, I'm just looking at them like, oh my gosh, like actually, as a friend, what do I say in that kind of situation? Because I'm starting to see a lot of women in that mode, and they're really proud of themselves, but in a way they're so exhausted, they're so tired, they don't know that they're in survival mode. What would you suggest people to do in that kind of situation if they see someone around them?
I hear your heart and I hear your intention, but you need to know if you're going to ask me something like that, I'm going to tell you exactly what I think. And the truth is, Sherry, people are going to have their own path. There's nothing you can say. There is nothing you can say. You can say, honey, can we have a serious conversation? I concerned. I see you operating at a high level. Are you all right? Is there anything that you need? And if she's living in that, then she's going to, first of all, she's going to take offense. What do you mean?
Yeah.
What do you mean? Am I okay? Like that's offensive. Can you see through me? Like this transparency feels vulnerable, and I don't like vulnerability because now my armor isn't working. And what I'm trying to hide is my vulnerability and my self-perceived weakness. So that's the first thing. The second thing is what you can do is exactly what you're doing. I've seen your podcast. I've heard your guests. I see your dedication. I've heard some of your own story that you weave in, especially the story about, your journey with weight and things like that, and eating. And those are so important for women to hear, because whether we believe it or not, and whether we understand it or not, ED, which is eating disorder, is definitely linked to trauma as a child for a woman. Same thing with addiction and alcoholism. Today we have nearly none. Almost never do we have addiction and alcoholism that does not attach itself to trauma. Addiction and alcoholism is a secondary diagnosis. It's not a primary. So something else has happened. Something else has gone on in order for us to pick up a compulsive behavior. Compulsive behaviors of any type, even scrolling, gaming, gambling, ad infinitum, they're nervous system soothers. And so the women that you're talking about, that you want to help, that you want to say something to, when you see them operating at this very dangerous level, is they have these behaviors that they don't want to give up. And sometimes the behavior is, I did it all because then I can feel successful. I remember being a single mother, working 2 jobs, going to school, from abject poverty to what I've created today, which is a lot different. And on a good day where everything felt like dominoes, I'd tell my kids, super mom. Like I felt so good. I felt so good when I got it right. But the day that I missed a step, it would send me into a 3-day depression at work, or I couldn't go to a football game, or I'm working 20 miles away from the school and the school calls me and says, your kid has holes in his jeans. Come and give him a new pair. And I'm like, well, do you just think I'm at home not doing anything? Like I'm a single mom, I can't leave my job and go get some jeans and deliver them to the school 20 miles away. So now I feel like a failure because these boxes are unchecked. The best thing you can do is keep spreading the message that you're spreading. I really believe that people are hearing you.
Oh, thank you. That's my hope as well. Like you said, when we're in that high functioning mode, one thing, one little thing, one little setback. And now I think of it, that happened to me so many times. It would be just like one teeny tiny mistake. Maybe I miss a meeting, or maybe I mistaken, I made like a little teeny tiny mistake on some social media wordings, or maybe I misspelled something. I would be so hard on myself. I would beat myself up so hard. And my coworker would be like, it's a teeny tiny mistake. And people wouldn't understand why I'm just beating myself so hard, and I'm just so critical to myself. And I could I would be in bed just like I wanted to hide myself. I literally wanted to put the cover over my head because of that tiny little mistake, just like you said.
Yeah. last night, I was working on some clips and posting them I was on a panel for the Global Mental Wellness Summit that was hosted by Iris Wharton in the UK. She's a coach, and I was working on some clips. It was late for me, which is about 10 o'clock at night when I did this last one. And I used AI to help me formulate a description. And I copied and pasted the whole thing and put the video on my Facebook channel. And in the morning, I got a text from a dear friend of mine that was like, hey, like just got this in my feed. Like it's so obvious, AI, like blah, blah, blah. That normally would have just sent me spinning. And the reason why is because it's not because, oh, I should slow down, not work past, my bedtime or whatever the case may be. But in my head, it would have been, what are people now going to think of me? It's this fear of perceived judgment. And that comes from when we were younger, having hypercriticism. There's always somebody ready to point the finger at what I'm not doing right, how I'm not measuring up, how I could have done it better. Even in a moment of celebration or achievement, I have somebody telling me it's not enough. I need to reach for more. And so now this chat, I can't remember, Chat GPT or Claude, one of them, this excerpt that was on there, I just went and I deleted the parts that say, oh, wow, what a great idea. Just delete it and edit and move on, but I'm not internalizing. And see, that's some of the work, not only with the body, but also the mind. Because if I just breathed through that, I would calm down. But the pattern from my belief system and from my thoughts hasn't changed. So somewhere along the line, that's going to be resurrected, and I'm still going to have that shame response. We have to work with the body and the mind together.
So could you tell me a little bit about in that kind of situation when you feel like the shame is coming? What do you do? Is there anything that we could do to calm that part down? Because obviously we don't want to shove it down, because that's my first reaction, right? To not think about it. What do we do then? Like, how do we integrate that into our body and to calm ourselves?
Sure. The first thing is to recognize that if I'm going to change any habit, I have to be aware of it. And for me to be aware of it, I have to practice mindfulness. Mindfulness often comes from periods of stillness and silence. And if I'm not incorporating that in my self-care routine, because I'm an entrepreneurial and professional woman, and I hit the ground running, and I'm already on my task list, and I'm accomplishing so much, but I'm not slowing down. I'm not sitting still. I'm not doing an intentional breathing practice, which is absolutely crucial for anybody that is wanting to heal traumatic experiences or integrate traumatic experiences, because the effects of trauma on the brain are literal physical changes. PTSD of any type is a brain injury, and we don't talk about that enough. And so having this intentional breathing practice anchors my consciousness, my presence in my form. I'm present now. As I learn how to be present now, I'm more likely to witness my own thoughts. But that's only the first step. The second step is detaching myself from the thoughts that are happening, understanding that they are projections of a belief system. If you think of roots of a tree, we went over several of them just already in this podcast episode of what belief do I have that is forming my thoughts, my feelings, and my behaviors. It's a schematic for my life. So being able to recognize in real time, I'm having this thought because I have this belief. And now I need to shift it. So I tell everybody the same thing. If you feel an influx of any type of emotion, and here we're using shame as an example, the first thing is put on the oxygen mask. Think about the airline attendant doing their demonstration. The oxygen mask drops. That's your first thing, is oxygen to the brain and to the body, and make sure it's in the lower portion of the lungs. because anxiety breathes from here. Peace breathes from here. And so relaxing the abdomen and breathing in, and then slowing down, and then compassionate curiosity. The person who coined that term was Dr. Gabor Mate. I want to be
Mm,
compassionately curious about what I'm experiencing, what you're experiencing even. So, okay, what am I experiencing? What is this telling me? Not where is it coming from? We don't want to psychoanalyze too early. And what is this telling me? What am I needing right now in this moment? That's how we can process our emotions in real time. But unfortunately, Sherry, it sounds like running into a burning building for a lot of trauma survivors, because I don't want to feel that. I don't want to think about that. I don't want to remember that. I have stuff to do. I have things. I have to keep showing up for life. I remember when I started my process, I told a therapist who, terrific lady, but not the right approach for me. It made me worse, not better. There are reasons for that. But I remember telling her, I'm afraid if I open up to you and I start crying, I'm never going to stop. And I don't want to be in that. I don't want it to take me down, because that's exactly how it felt for a long time for me to feel my feelings, was like I was a cork on the surface and it would pull me down to the depths. And I had literally no skills, no tools on how to get out of that. And that's not very kind to do to people like us, is open us up and then just leave us that way. Like, please put me back together before I leave your office and pay you $250 for this. Please be humane about it. But unfortunately, there's some missing pieces there. But the first thing is breathing in. The second is understanding that feeling states are temporary. We both are near the ocean. So imagining the waves of the feelings coming into your body and then breathing them out so they leave. This is temporary. It's a signal, information. And a lot of times the feeling can be perceived as it's information to ask myself what I'm thinking. We think something happens in the external environment and I have a feeling about it. This happens when my brother hits me and my mom goes, tell her you're sorry. I'm not aware that I also have a thought about what just happened. So I have a thought first, and then I have a feeling. And the thought and the feeling, they jump back and forth. And now I have an emotion, energy in motion in my body. So we can use those signals to say, what is it that I'm thinking about? What story am I telling myself about this thing that just happened? And now, what do I need? What do I need? Do I need rest? Do I need food? Do I need a friend? Do I need to stop? Do I need to be kind to myself? Do I need to change the narrative instead of, why aren't you doing it all? Into, hey, we all need breaks. We all make mistakes. It's okay to learn. Life goes on. Tomorrow's another day. Those are some examples of how to deal with that.
mm. Oh, thank you so much, because I think right off the bat, you said something that I so needed to hear, is that we don't go into where is it coming from right away. We ask, what do you actually feel? Because I think for so many times I wanted to get to the root, right? I'm like, where is it coming from? That did not make things better. That made me spiral even more, right?
Yes, it can. And depending on where you're at, it could either make us invalidate the experience. Oh, I'm being too sensitive or too harsh, or I'm demanding or asking for too much. And heaven forbid we're in a situation where that person's actually telling us that, because we'll buy into that all day long and take responsibility just to get out of the emotional state. Right? You're absolutely right. I will do it all and you just be you. Whatever I have to do so I don't feel like this anymore, right? And so we don't want to go into how or why is this here. We just want to accept I'm having a feeling. And whatever it is, chances are a portion of it belongs to right now. And because emotions are records of the past, because I don't know that I'm going to feel that way if it hasn't happened before, then it might belong to the past too. So a continuous job is How much of this am I already carrying? How much of this belief in myself as a failure am I already carrying? And then how much impact is my boss telling me I need to do something different? How much of that belongs to the experience with my boss? Because chances are it's a small thing, but a really big reaction inside of me that almost always points to a previous experience with something familiar, because the brain is predictive. It's predictive in nature. It needs to tell me ahead of time that this thing is going to happen again. So we're going to be ready, because if we're ready and we worry about it and we have anxiety about it and we can prevent it, it's a big lie. It's a really big lie. It never works out that way. We just end up losing our power in the moment.
Yep. Oh my goodness. I think you just named so many patterns that I had.
I have them too.
Thing. You know, something I've always wanted to ask you is that, because speaking of high functioning women, and there's so many of us now in the world, why is it that a lot of high functioning women, intelligent women, keep choosing emotionally unavailable people in their relationship? Because that's a revelation that I had last year. And I'm just like, it blows my mind, because they're doing so well in their job, every other areas in their life, but they can't seem to find someone who's actually good for them in a lot of romantic relationships.
We're going to need another podcast episode for just this, but I'm going to give you the answer. There are life spheres that are harder to develop depending on the belief system of the woman. And so the two big ones are love and money. Those are the two big ones, is love and money. And, I can feel powerful in my career. I can do an okay job, as a parent, as a friend. I'm mindful about what I eat and how I move and all of that. I keep picking the same guy. It's like being on the dance floor with the same song, different curtain.
Mm.
And the reason for that one is because relationships have a biological underpinning. So what I ask women when they tell me my guy is this, I say, who else is like that in your life? And it's always the same answer. It's either I married my mom, I'm dating my dad. Because there's a similar, and this is the real essence of the trauma bond. Social media, et cetera, will have us believe that a trauma bond is I get together with this guy, we exchange traumas, and then we fight and we work it out. Half truth. A real trauma bond is I'm in this relationship with this person who treated me very similar to somebody early on in my life. So something in my biology, something in my attachment style has drawn me to this person. And I'm interacting with them in the relationship. I'm over explaining. I'm begging for basic respect. I'm forgiving the unforgivable. I am continuing the relationship, even though the line has been crossed so many times. There's deal breaker after deal breaker after deal breaker, because I can't detach. Because being in toxic or being in violence or being cheated on, whatever, fill in the blank, it's easier for me to survive by staying with you than it is to detach the connection from you. And if I can just get you to understand how I'm feeling and why, and I can get you to turn toward me and treat me differently, I'm going to be okay. The wound that's inside of me from the time I was very little will finally be okay. That's a trauma bond. And we replay it over and over. And have you noticed that we stay way too long? I stayed way too long in toxic. And I think the reason is my experience personally and professionally is I have to know it's not me. I can't, people say, well, just leave. I'm like, well, wait, it might be me. Well, that black eye is definitely not you. Well, I know, but I have to make sure. but I have to make sure that it's not my fault before I walk away, because I was conditioned as a child to believe when I was abused, when I was mistreated, when I was abandoned, when I was neglected, and then right behind that, the parent says, but I love you. I
Mm.
was conditioned to believe that love and abuse can coexist, and they cannot. They cannot. So I stay in this cycle until I know it's not me and until I've had enough. But then I leave, and what happens? Oh my God, I miss them. They're texting me. I cannot prevent myself from picking up the phone. Like everything has gone dark, gone silent. The good morning stop, the good night stop, the how are you? So now I see in my phone, hey, I know you hate me, but I just wanted to see how you're doing. No expectations. I'll leave you alone. You were the best thing that happened to me. I deserve all the pain. And what it is bait. It's bait to draw us back into the dynamic, and we fall for it almost every time unless we have the right interventions to choose ourselves.
Mm. I think it perfectly depicts so many my personal experience of, my observations from other incredibly intelligent women. Yeah, it's that attachment and just continuously kind of that cycle. It's like we choose to be apart and then also we kind of get pulled back in again. And you're right, it that deserved a standalone episode on its own because I feel like that's a lot to explore. But I wanted to be really mindful of your time. So I wanted to make sure that I get to the most important part of the question for soft power is that what is your definition of soft power at this point in your life?
We talked about this in our initial call, our pre-interview meeting. And the best, this is where we align. Soft power and untriggered are similar. Like what we're acknowledging as some of the responses that I carry, although they are very, very valid, I cannot continue to give myself permission to operate at this level. It's not sustainable. It's killing me. It's not good for me. It's not good for the people around me because I might be able to multitask, but I'm not present. My picture to you was in United States history, we have the civil rights movement. And when Dr. Martin Luther King and his staff were campaigning for equal rights for African American people, there was a woman named Rosa Parks. She's phenomenal. And she was in a bus, and the bus driver told her as a white man boarded the bus that she needed to get up. She was in a bus for a black, or in the seat appropriate for a black individual, but the bus was full and he told her to move. And after hearing Dr. Martin Luther King speak and after internalizing the message of freedom and choice and of peaceful demonstration, Rosa describes this thing that came over her where she said no. And the bus driver, what do you mean no? And the man waiting in the aisle was, what do you mean no? And in her book, Quiet Strength by Rosa Parks, and in an interview in 1993, this is what she says when somebody asked her, what was it? What was it that caused you to not comply anymore? After years of complying, this is all she knew. Right? She grew up in this. And this is what she said. I just believed that I no longer had to. So essentially what she's saying is she rejected the former belief of how she needed to comply in spite of friends of hers being executed and attacked and all kinds of really awful things. She stood her ground because complying meant sacrificing or betraying, better word, that which was sacred inside of herself. So soft power is, to me, or quiet strength or untriggered, is a definition that my control is no longer externally located. It doesn't depend on you changing. It doesn't depend on my mother saying sorry. It doesn't depend on my father being present. It doesn't depend on getting apologies from all the people that have hurt me. It doesn't depend on my performance anymore and the accolades and appreciation that I might thrive on. What it depends on is internally located locus of control, location of control. And so it's me keeping the promises to myself, being true to myself. And so some of the responses that I used before are no longer applicable for living a nervous system informed or trauma informed life.
Oh, thank you so much for that. Because actually, since we have a little bit more time,
Sure.
I really wanted to ask this question. And I think that perfectly weaved into that is that, I hear this phrase a lot these days on social media, self-trust, right? And thank you for mentioning Rosa Parks, because I definitely did some research after you mentioned it to me. I felt like I really remember that story, and it really resonated with me so much. So when you talk about that control, does that mean self-trust? And what does self-trust really mean? Really? Because it sounds so easy, but then at the same time, I'm not even sure, how do you define that?
It's a good question. And I've seen it too on social media. And I'm glad that it's picking up a trend. But like everything else, we need to make sure as women in the field that we're communicating a message of hope and a message of truth. Because anybody can go through the trends on Instagram and put up a video to get monetization. Yes, I said it, not sorry. Not sorry. So we want to make sure, and I said this in videos I posted last night that every coach is going to have an experience. Every individual is going to have an experience, but be careful of what they're saying and why, because they may not have the same motivation. Our motivation is to set others free. And so we are extra responsible and acting in our integrity with our message all the time. So to me, you talked about control. Control can come, or self-discipline can come from a couple different areas. It can come from people pleasing. It can come from performing. It can come from suppression. It can come from escape. It can come from managing anxiety, because if I'm just a good manager, it gives me the illusion of safety through control. So that's the first thing I want to say. And self-trust, my experience is trusting myself is really important, because I picked the guy who almost killed me. I picked the guy who beat me. I picked the guy who was a narcissist. I went left when I should have went right. You know, a couple times I made my mom right. I was a failure, a loser, inept, inadequate, and that really pissed me off, right? To make her right about the things she said about me. So developing self-trust is about me keeping my promises to myself. So when my health matters to me, and I repeat it over and over, that what I eat matters, that my body feels a certain wellness when I'm a certain weight, and my knees don't hurt, and my back doesn't hurt, and my hips don't hurt. When I'm incorporating movement to make sure that I'm mobile and flexible and that type of thing. I'm 55 years old. So, those projections into the future, especially having a mother who worked in geriatrics for 40 years, my mom gave me a lot of messages of what it looks like when you get old. I have a choice, like Rosa, to believe that those are true and continue to rehearse them. When I do, I'm going to live them out, or formulate a different belief. And for me, my belief is wellness. And so I keep my promises to myself as much as I possibly can. I move, I eat appropriately, I forgive myself. I practice meditation a lot. I practice intentional breathing, intentional versus passive breathing. It's one thing to do the 4-7-8 breathing technique and have my mind wander about the grocery list. It's another thing to be connected with myself, feeling the breath, being still, taking my mind off my thoughts onto a video, for instance, to practice that control of focus. So keeping my promises to myself, that's the thing that builds self-trust. It's when I say I'm going to go to the gym in the morning and I don't, where now I start to rehearse shame over and over and over. Or I say I'm going to eat healthy, but then I have a big fat piece of birthday cake. Birthday cake isn't bad, but my opinion, refined sugar, especially somebody that has a history of sports nutrition and fitness, refined sugar is a lethal substance, honestly. It's addictive in nature. The more I put it in, all of a sudden I have these cravings, right? And there's different reasons for that. But if I say I'm not going to do that and I do it, I lose trust in myself. Why wouldn't I? If you tell me you're going to do something and you don't, am I going to trust you? I shouldn't. So why would that not be applicable to myself? I said I was going to do that and I didn't. Now I'm a failure. And I go into shame instead of understanding why I can't break the habit. Because breaking the habit and instilling new habits takes effort. It takes mindfulness. It takes patience. It takes consistency. 21 to 30 days to implement a new habit. We can go no carb. I know you can't because, rice is a staple. My husband is Asian. My husband is Filipino and Hawaiian, and I've never seen anybody eat so much white rice and be so thin. Like, I'm Italian. If I ate pasta every day, it would be just a nightmare, right? And I'm not going to eat white rice every day. But anyway, if we could both say, okay, no rice, no pasta. And the first thing the brain is going to do is introduce resistance. That's its job. The very thing that keeps us alive and creates new neurons, novelty, newness, is something that the brain will at first reject because it wants familiarity. It confuses familiarity with security. And so when I say I'm not going to eat any pasta, my brain goes, oh my God, spaghetti sounds so good right now. Oh, wait, I'm not supposed to do that. And it's in that space of, I want it, but I made a promise to myself. I don't want to do it, but I made a promise to myself. And this is why so many gurus, Tony Robbins, David Bird, Darren Hardy from Success Magazine, these success gurus tell us, remember your why for your behavior. Rehearse it over and over. And then we have things like from Abraham Hicks, from Neville Goddard, from Florence Scovel Shinn, who taught an early form of quantum mechanics and physics. And they talk about rehearse the end result. That after your goal is achieved, feel that feeling in your body, and that will help you keep your promises to yourself, which will help you build your trust.
Wow. Oh, I love that. There's a lot for me to unpack there, especially when you said that. I think a lot of us feel like familiarity equals security. So that's why we
Yes.
kept going back to the bad habit that we're trying to break. Yeah, so Mia, I have to say thank you so much. And I feel like there is really a lot more that I could ask you. Like you said, when it comes to relationship, I think that opens up the can of worms. I feel like everyone is just especially vulnerable when we're with someone in a romantic relationship. And yeah, maybe we could definitely address that in a separate episode. If you're willing, I would love that.
Anytime, Sherry. And it needs to be talked about because what happens with trauma survivors is, especially successful entrepreneurial, professional, high functioning is what you called it, right? Women.
Yeah.
What ends up happening is there's something in me, and this happened to me, that said, that's it. I'm just going to be alone. I am never going to do this again. Like, I will look at men from a distance, but I will never let you close to my heart. I'm just going to pour my life into my message, into my work. And it was 2 months later, I met my now husband. That was 5 years ago. And so, don't repeat that experiment. I don't know if that's going to happen for everybody, but I do know this. Once I stopped feeling like a relationship was going to complete me, then something shifted for me.
Yeah.
Right. And it's just like the more I need money, the more I'm aware money is absent. And so there needs to be a mind shift there as well in the belief system. But we do need to talk about it because a lot of women are swearing off, like, I'll just be alone. And the reason why is because in the container, that must be true for you, in the container of a relationship, I am going to learn things that I cannot learn by myself. I am going to grow so much in a way that I never could alone. And so the friction gets scary. And now we have these little micro arguments. And I think it's going to end up like every other time. And I probably picked wrong again because I have a broken picker. And so I'm just going to get rid of you and be by myself. But then I realized I overreacted. So I'm going to bring you back and we're going to try again. And I'm going to change. I'm going to do something different. And now we're in cycle. So we have to do some healing first on those relationships to find out what it is, the underpinnings that I mentioned earlier. Why do I continue to pick a different partner, same dance floor, same song? What's going on there? It's me, not them. It's me, not them. I'm not victim blaming here. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not saying I was the cause of all the horrific abuse that has happened to me. I'm just acknowledging that there was something in me that was magnetized to people that hurt me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think it's also taking back the responsibility, right?
And that's liberating, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. So I want, listeners, please stay tuned. I'm going to keep you updated on what, that all about relationship and also about money. I think that's a topic I wanted to talk about as well. So thank you so much, Mia, for being here today. It's been absolutely lovely.
Thank you, Sherry. A couple things I wanted to mention. I'm launching a 12-week intensive with the Untriggered Woman Trauma Transformation System. Just created the sales page last night. So the start date for that is September 15th, 2026. It will be a live group coaching format with 6 touch points, 6 personal sessions with everybody. It's only for 12 women, 12 weeks, an entire transformation. There'll be more marketing material for that. I also have a school community that's very low cost option for people who are coming in dysregulated and learning real time. We deal with real problems that are happening right now in a group format. That's available on school. And then, of course, my social media channels. Anybody is curious about maybe a one-on-one coaching or they have something very sensitive and serious that needs a closer, more intimate container. There's a lot of subjects that maybe we don't feel good expressing in a group format. So there are those things too. And I would love to come back and you're going to come on my podcast, The Untriggered Woman. That's coming up next. So I'm going to tell all your watchers and listeners too, watch out for Sherry because I'm going to interview her on my podcast. That's what we do.
Yay.
Thank you so much, Sherry. Just such a blessing. Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you.